This segment is brought to you by Buick. Exceptional by design. All right, welcome back to Bayou Time. And I thought as we're looking at the map, let's go to the map and come back and just show everybody. You know, as we look at all this mess that we've had, we called it the blob because that's what it was. It had two really circulations. It broke off from each other. And as we were covering all this and watching some people get rain and some people not getting rain, I just kept, throughout this whole process, reliving Ida, reliving other storms and remembering what people went through with their claims and didn't know if people would have water or get damage to their properties in this particular storm. So I wanted to bring on some people to talk about where we are now, what's happening after Ida with claims, and people still waiting to get paid, or things still pending, things not resolved. So what I did, I've got a panel of three up here. So I want all the audience to listen very carefully because you may fit into one of these. Maybe it's irrelevant. I don't know, but I think it's important. So we have David Ardoin, who's right next to me on the set, and he is with AMO Trial Lawyers. David, good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Good to see you. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, very familiar face in the middle. He's not here as the DA today. He's here as Weights and Downer. And I want to make sure we make that distinction because I wanted Joe on because they have coverage, him and his son and Aunt Downer and Mary and a lot of people at the firm handle these cases. And I wanted his trust up here because I want to make sure that we get the answers out. So Joe H. Jr. is not here as a district attorney, he's here as an attorney with his firm. Joe, good to see you.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you for having me.
All right. Chris St. Martin, of course, a lot of you know Chris too, and his mother and father so instrumental in the community. He is with St. Martin in Bork. And by the way, we want to offer our condolences for your partner Chuck's mother-in-law, Julia's mom, who passed away. So I want to make sure that we offer our condolences for your law partner.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah. So let's do this. I don't know where we stand now with all these unresolved cases that we've had against insurance companies, but I figured this would be a good way to find out. So David, bring us through your firm, and I'll get everybody to sort of tell us their end. Do you still have unresolved cases from Ida?
Unfortunately, we do. The majority of claims have been resolved at this point. Unfortunately, there are stragglers out there. They tend to be the more complicated cases. Or one thing that's very common at this point is, as you know, quite a few insurance companies became insolvent. They went under, bankrupt, whatever terminology you want to use. So those individuals' claims were converted to what's called LIGA, the Louisiana Insurance Guarantee Association. There's a slight delay by the fact that they go through the insolvency, they're turned over to LIGA. There may be a new set of adjusters assigned to the case. There's certainly a new process assigned to the case. So that causes a little bit of delay, but the majority of remaining claims out there are LIGA claims, and those are actual pending lawsuits. Okay. I'm sure one of the others may.
Yeah, I'd like to know each firm, just to try to get an idea of the magnitude of the. Joe, in your law firm, still have unresolved cases?
Absolutely, and as David was pointing out, most of them are now LIGA cases. We tried the first LIGA case, and as David pointed out once again, that it just took time to get them in the right posture to be tried, and unfortunately, they've taken a very I don't care attitude and forcing us to trial, and we've gotten some very favorable decisions that I don't understand why they wouldn't just step up and say, let's resolve these cases. But be that as it may, we're going to have to go through all that and fight for the citizens and continue to fight for them because so many of them have been treated unfairly. And we're here to make sure that we live here, we're part of this community. We want to see these insurance companies treat these people fairly. And historically, from the last couple of storms, some of them have not been treated fairly.
Okay. Chris, St. Martin and Bork, how many unresolved you would estimate y'all would have?
We've still got a few, and it's just like both the other guys said. It's a lot of them are either procedurally complicated cases or they're set up in the LIGA format at this point in time. Hopefully, we can start seeing some resolution as they get tried. The local courts have done a lot to try to move them forward with some of the streamlined processes, but the bankruptcy issues have just bogged a lot of these cases down. And just as Joe mentioned, it's a terrible thing when you pay a premium, the damage comes and they thumb their nose at you and walk on down the street. It's a tough deal, but we're here to make it right, and we're going to continue to do what we need to do.
I guess the obvious question for me, because I hear from a lot of people who are still frustrated out there that they haven't been paid. Is there any situations percolating or still out there where people have just been defiantly not being paid or missing deadlines, or that people can't get compensated and they try to get reimbursed and the insurance carrier or company just ignores them or just doesn't pay? Any like that?
Fairly common in the early stages. And as you may or may not know, so traditionally speaking, under your insurance contract, you have 2 years to file suit against your own insurer, your own home insurer. So as it pertains to Ida, generally speaking, if you haven't filed suit by now, it's probably too late to take them to task. One exception to that is if you were a citizen's insurance holder, citizen's insurance policy holder, and you were affected by Ida, and there was a delay in payment, a delay where they send an inspector out and they take more than 30 days to get a tender into your hands, you may still have a viable claim. And that's an exception to the rule. But again, if you were a citizen's insurance policy holder affected by Ida and you believe you were paid late, I'd recommend that you reach out to my firm or one of these gentlemen sitting up here on this panel, because I believe there's additional claims that can be brought.
Yeah, let me ask this, and maybe Joe or Chris can jump in on this. If somebody's not paid in a certain amount of time, I recall there being a penalty, or they had to pay 2 times the amount or 3 times. I can't remember what it was. Does that still, say like with citizens, does that still hold true?
It absolutely holds true. They had an obligation to get out, investigate, and do their homework within 30 days and make the appropriate payment. In so many cases, they have woefully failed that obligation, and that's what David's talking about. They're entitled to a 50% penalty for failing to, let's get going. People are in a bind. People's houses have been destroyed. They don't have a roof on their head. Let's do the right thing. Let's move forward. Assess the claim, and they hired many adjusters to come out and just do this, and they didn't do it. And so the law is set up to let's help these people get back on their feet, and that's why the penalty comes about. And that's what David is saying. Citizens, they didn't honor their obligations, and by doing that, a lot of were unrepresented. They don't know that they still have these viable claims. It's very important. Let me give you an example. A lady that I knew very well, I'm not going to say any names, toward the end of the 3-year time frame to file a lawsuit, I just happened to stop by our house to check on her. Her husband had passed away, and Martin, when I walked into the house, there was water on the floor. It was unbelievable. And I said, how are you living like this, Sue? Well, they gave me $8,000. I didn't know what to do, and I'm like, I said, come talk to me. And we helped my son Joseph ultimately settle the case for close to $200,000 worth of damage that they gave her $8,000. You can tell me how that's fair in any sense of the word. Totally unfair. And that's the kind of treatment that some of them stepped up to the plate and did the right thing. Many of them didn't do the right thing. And those citizens owes a lot of people penalties for failing to honor their obligations, as David was talking. That's just one example. There are many of them out there.
Educate me and educate the public, because I get confused with all these insurance companies. I mean, it seems to change. Y'all in that arena all the time, so y'all follow it. But Chris, is Citizens different than any other insurance carrier? How do they differ, or do they at all?
They really don't in the sense of the word. It's an insurance company that was formed by the Louisiana legislature to help people who were uninsured or uninsurable at the time. when it comes to following the law and following the insurance guidelines and payment of claims, they're obligated to follow the rules just like Allstate, State Farm, or any other carrier at this point in time. Joe brings up a really good point. And again, a lot of people down here, they're not familiar with the insurance process. They're not familiar with the claims process. And I was sent this check. I'm satisfied. I've made do all these years. We clean up, we get back to what we're doing, and that, but it's not fair compensation for their claim. It's really not. These unrepresented people who had Louisiana Citizens Insurance policy, they should be dialing a number as soon as they can to see what they're entitled to, not what some carrier or some adjuster thought that they were entitled to.
Citizens is treated uniquely. It's an insurer of last resort. And the legislature in, I don't think it was last session, maybe the session before, determined that citizens could not be sued by class action for these penalties. What has happened, there was a class action pending. So what's happened is there's still remedies available to individuals who were part of that class. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. If you were paid late, So you had asked about penalties. Under the law at the time, the law mandated if they paid later than 30 days after what was called satisfactory proof of loss, then there's going to be a 50% penalty attached in addition to attorney's fees. So those claims are still viable claims as it pertains to citizens insurance. And that's why I'm making a slight distinction. The law is the same, but those are claims that are still available against Citizens Insurance Company that may not be available against others. They may be too old against others.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, there's an avenue. Most people would think the class actions are over, but individually, there's still an avenue.
Individually, they still have their claims, correct.
Okay.
And they can be pursued along those lines.
Joe, did any people out there know that, or have they ever been educated on that?
I don't think they have, and that's why we want to let the people know that if you were a citizens policyholder, you need to give any one of the three of us a shout, and let's talk about it, because you have a very viable claim that all we have to do is engage us, and we'll handle it from there. So it's very, very important that they act relatively quick to get things rolling. But yes, citizens policyholders have a viable claim out there that's still active.
Chris, and I'll ask everybody this question, do you have, or do you know how many citizens policyholders we have in the state?
I don't know the total amount of Louisiana Citizens policyholders in the state, but I know that there are several thousand of these claims that were eligible under the class action that the legislature essentially took away. So there's several thousand claims in the Houma-Thibodeau area that were paid late after satisfactory inspection that are entitled to these damages.
Somebody's watching from Citizens right now. I'm sure they're going, whoa, I didn't know that. I didn't know I still had rights. What do they do with that, David?
Well, like Joe said, the first thing to do is pick up the phone and give one of us a call. As you pointed out earlier, most people don't live in the world of attorneys. So it takes an attorney to understand what your rights are, how you go about asserting your rights and getting the proper compensation. So the easiest thing to do, give me a call. My telephone number is 446-3333. Joe's available, Chris is available. We have multiple members of each firm that are available to answer calls, answer your questions, and get the ball rolling.
This insurance thing is complicated enough, and after a storm, it becomes very complicated. But I've had people that have done work for me here in the building or different places, and the stories that they tell are unbelievable, and they've been paying into the insurance for a long, long time. And Joe, I know you've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, Martin, the biggest concern is that once you have a devastating event like this, there's an influx of out-of-towners that come in, and some of them are good people. Some of them prey on our people. They sign contracts and agreements that have all kind of language, take all the rights away from the individual policyholder, and actually give power of attorney sometimes to the contractor to do whatever they want to resolve the case. So there was a lot of litigation. Some lawyers got disbarred over this by doing the wrong thing and presenting it in under duress, having these people sign these contracts that they didn't know what they were signing, but some of the courts were holding their feet to the fire. Finally got into the federal system, and they called their bluff on it, so to speak, and they were some firms were disbarred for some of the practices. So get your reputable attorney, get somebody you know, get somebody you trust, and don't be signing a lot of contracts and agreements that you really don't understand, because there was some language in there. It takes 6 lawyers to understand what they were talking about.
And Chris, maybe differentiate again, and everybody can join in here. This is interesting to me because it seems like Citizens is on a different playing field than some of the other insurers because of legislation passed, or?
Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah, I mean, the initial claim or the initial class was filed against Citizens as they were probably the most tardy and the most neglectful in paying some of the claims. So the case went on, and as it went on, the legislature eventually, during the middle of the case, filed some legislation that retroactively took away the class action ability of claimants in Louisiana to sue Citizens. So now your only option is to file claims individually against them. It was a streamlined process. It's there for a reason, but the legislature took that away, and here we are. So you change the rules, we'll play by your new rules, no problem.
So we have no problem pursuing these claims individually, and we think we will be very successful in doing so. But I think their intent was twofold. Number one, make it extremely burdensome for individuals to bring their claims individually, pursue them one by one, right? Secondly, they're hoping that these thousands of people that were treated unfairly, that were treated improperly, would have no knowledge of this. Part of the class action process is notice. So once the courts would have approved, once a class is certified and they approve a proper notice, the notice goes out to all these individuals. But whenever that procedural mechanism is taken away, Citizens hopes, they sit back and hope, well, gosh, whether it's 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 5,000 people, 10,000 people, they will never know of our misdeeds. They'll never know that they were entitled to more money. So events like this, sitting before you, talking with you, is a great stepping stone, and hopefully word gets out and people realize I still have a viable claim. These rules were set in place following way back when Katrina. The penalties available at that point in time were much lower. Well, they went up as a result of insurance companies continuing to snub their nose, just kind of turn their backs to their policyholders. And Citizens, despite the fact that the legislature thought it was important to impose these penalties, Citizens nonetheless continued to ignore their obligations. They accepted your premiums, but they ignored their obligation to pay when it came time to do so. So these penalties played a very important role. Why the legislature took the position they did and got away with class actions, I don't know. That's none of my business. But you still have an individual claim. It's important to pursue those claims. And these individuals that were treated unfairly and paid untimely still have viable claims. And I believe their best course of action, again, pick up the telephone, contact one of us so we can take action on your behalf.
Who controls Citizens? I mean, I know if you go down the big insurance companies and they answer to a board and they're all, who controls Citizens?
Well, so there is a board of directors, just like a traditional insurance company. In this particular case, but that's who controls Citizens. They are controlled by a board of directors.
I'm sure the insurance commissioner, we'd like to speak to him, but that's why I want to bring you on, because I hear it all the time, and run into people they're still starving to become whole. And Chris, we'll come back to you. I'm sure a lot of y'all litigation y'all had on this. I'm not saying it's different than people that come to you for catastrophic event or an 18-wheel accident but these people's homes have been, people who in other accidents that, were injured, they still have a home to go to. Some people in these cases are still homeless. I'm sure y'all spend a lot of time counseling people.
You bring up a really, really good point and a valid point that we all recognize right after Ida. It's one thing to deal with injuries and personal injuries and doctor visits and hospitals and what have you. But when you don't have a home to go to and your home's been tremendously upset by a hurricane and you have an insurer that's just ignoring you, it is really, really tough on people mentally, physically, emotionally. It just wore on people like you've never seen before. And again, I just get back to it is pick up the phone. The calls are free. The evaluation of the cases don't cost a thing to these claimants. Don't hesitate to give any one of us a call. That's what we're here for.
And Joe?
These insurance companies know that some of these people are in a bind, and when they're in a bind like that, they lowball them, and the people feel like they have nowhere to go, so they take the lowball offer, which is patently unfair. And that's a process, and they know what they're doing to get them to accept the lowball. They're just dangling something in front because they have to get the roof fixed. They have to get the rain from coming in. There's things that they have to do, and they have no other means to do it. So they take the money, and it's just unfair.
A lot of those attorneys, David, on the other side that represent these big companies, we all know for a fact, they paid to represent the other companies. They're pretty good at what they do. They're told what to do. They have mandates on what to do. So y'all idea here with citizens and other things is to sort of even the playing field and give people a chance to not have to go up against these attorneys, let attorneys go against attorneys and not just the average person.
That's our job, and I describe it that way to people all the time. The job of a good attorney is to even the playing field, because the truth of the matter, as you pointed out, an individual, there's no way they have the ability to go up against a multi-million-dollar or even $1 billion company, right? So without having an attorney who has the proper know-how, who has the proper experience, you're fighting an uphill battle. But our job, anybody who's sitting right here right now, and the attorneys out there in our community, competent attorneys, we even the playing field. Mm-hmm. We give you a fighting chance and an opportunity to make things right.
I like the fact they got 3 attorneys here from 3 different firms. Anybody watching can call any one of y'all. So let's do this real quick. Give your number again. I'm going to go down the line and let everybody give their number.
So the telephone number to AMO Trial Lawyers is 985-446-3333.
All right. Joe?
Waits and Downer Law Firm. We're one of the oldest law firms here in Houma. My son Joseph and I handle a lot of these cases. Our number is 985-876-0870. We'll be happy to help.
All right. Chris?
St. Martin Bork. We're right here, 315 Barrett Street. Don't hesitate to stop by anytime. Dial the number 876-3891 or get on the website stmblaw.com. We've got an online chat as well. So anything we can do to help, we're happy to take the call and happy to help and evaluate.
I appreciate all of y'all coming on. Thanks for clarifying. I didn't know it would be so in-depth. I thought this far out from Ida would have more resolution, but it sounds to me like we still got some work to do.
We do.
Thank y'all. Appreciate
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Martin.
All right, once again, we do offer the other side. If you, I don't know who represents citizens, but if you do, more than happy to talk to you. Insurance Commissioner, you've been here before. More than happy to talk to you. And we appreciate anybody who wants to bring information on the other side. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again on another episode right here on Bayou Time. This segment was brought to you by Buick. exceptional by design.